Hello, welcome to our second lecture on 19th century Italian opera. Rather than jumping in and discussing Rossini work in detail, what I want to do is take a feature of Italian opera that characterizes the entire 19th century, from Rossini through to Puccini, that is the aria, and trace its development. So we start with the bel canto era. Now, the bel canto, the aria in the bel canto era is highly developed structure. It's really scenes. We're not talking about just single arias, but really whole scenes. Again, just a reminder of the bel canto style, emphasis on beautiful singing and agility, but also characteristic of it is this highly structured aria format. Now, that builds on 18th century aria structure. We've seen from the Countess's Dove Sono from Marriage of Figaro, and there are many other examples of two-part arias, beginning slow, then changing dramatically in the middle to a faster tempo, and that reflects a significant change in the character's psyche. Usually they turn from passive to being active. So that's a hallmark of 18th century style, and the 19th century bel canto style grows right out of it, just as the singing style grew out of it. But it gets much longer. So Rossini, the first example I'm going to look at here is Rossini's Una voce poco fa from Barbara of Seville. Her aria is twice as long as the Dove Sono from the Marriage of Figaro. Keep in mind, by the way, these are the same actual literary figure. This Rosina, though, is a much younger person than she is as the Countess after she marries the Count. The opera Barbara of Seville is about her, the way she meets the Count and marries him. So this is the aria where Rosina introduces herself. Begins with a quite long orchestral introduction, fairly long orchestral introduction. We'll hear longer ones later. So she begins singing. She sings an andante. And she introduces herself. She's just heard this man serenading her, this man who calls himself Lindoro. He's disguising himself. The Count doesn't want to reveal who he actually is. And her interest is sparked, but she's being sort of held captive, essentially, by Don Bartolo, who's her ward, and also has eyes on marrying her, which she is not interested in at all. He's the comic buffa character. So, as the tempo picks up a little bit, she starts revealing a little bit more about her strategy. She is going to be respectful. She can be docile. She can pretend to be compliant. This is exactly the same strategy and attitude that Figaro took in his Several Ballade in Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. Pretend to be deferential. But then as the tempo changes and picks up in Rossini, she sings ma, but, that important word, if crossed, I can be a viper. The tempo picks up, the orchestra in crescendos. So you see her real self here. So this structure of orchestral introduction, slower aria, and then picking up speed, faster aria, is crystallized into a even longer form in Bellini's Casta Diva. It's over twice as long as Rossini's aria. This is a true scena, Italian word for scene. Begins with an accompanied recitative. Now this is the character is not introducing herself. She is a priestess. So this is the aria functions as a ritual enacted before her community of druids. So she's the leader of that community. So the accompanied recitative is a formal declaration in public. Then begins the aria ritual with a very long flute solo. And then you hear the exact same melody when Norma begins singing in the A section. Now, this is a perfect cantabile. Also known as, these cantabile sections are often known as cavatinas. So this is a hymn to the moon. The chorus of priestesses behind her sings a B section. She sings a vocalize over the top. Then Norma comes back and repeats the A section with embellishments. All of these were written out, by the way, by Bellini. So you see here a format that is really essentially the same as the old da capo aria from Opera Seria. But this is just the first half. We haven't even got to the allegro yet. So when she finishes her hymn, the trumpet fanfares declare an end to the ritual. Norma declares the end to the ritual in what is essentially a declamatory accompanied recitative, but with a full orchestra underneath her. Her public face is, of course, denouncing the Romans who have colonized England. But, again, that crucial word but, in the middle of this, she slips to an accompanied recitative, and she expresses her love for Pollione, the proconsul, who she has had a secret affair with, and in fact had 2 children with. So we have here exposed the conflict between the public Norma, who has to denounce the Romans and call for their destruction, and the private Norma, who's in love with the Pollione. So that leads to the cabaletta. So instead of being active, the cabaletta here goes inside. So her true feelings come through. Again, that's similar to Rosina, where the cabaletta reveals her true feelings. But here, her true feelings, very unlike Rosina, have to be completely hidden. And of course, there's nothing funny about it at all. So bel canto, I just have to make some mention about singers, the importance of singers in the bel canto style. Just as in the old opera seria style, this is a singer's opera. Singers are the stars of the show. Those are the ones who are the audience is coming to see, not the composers, really. So bel canto opera is inherently a kind of fetishizes singers. Singers develop their own fan base. And this is true to this day for bel canto opera. So Maria Callas, Joan Salone is another example. This is Maria Callas sings much of the same repertoire that Giuditta Pasta did in the early 19th century. So if you might enjoy seeing this concert performance of the first half of Costa Diva. So important is this slow aria or cavatina in cabaletta structure that composers adopt it for other formal numbers. The duet between Mira and her sister Adalgisa is a perfect example. Pollione, his attention is moved away from Norma to her younger sister Adalgisa. This crushes Norma, and she's so furious about it, she contemplates killing her children. That's what Medea had done in the Greek mythology, so this is a reference to that. But Adalgisa steps in and talks her out of it. And so we see this exchange between Adalgisa and Norma. And Adalgisa didn't know about their relationship. And so now that she's found this out, she tells Norma how she feels about her. And then, so you have this moments of empathy between the two. And then in the tempo di mezzo, Adalgisa and Norma sing an accompanied recitative, and Adalgisa comes out and says she is willing to renounce her love for Pollione. It means more to her sister means more to her than her lover. So this brings the two singers together in the fast cabaletta. So together they will stand. A beautiful example of something we've seen in comic opera since La Serva Padrona, which is characters in conversation with one another when they are not exactly of one mind, or when one is trying to persuade the other. And then when they do come to an agreement, are of one mind, their voices come together. And hear an exciting allegro with them singing in thirds. All right, so I'm going to, before I move on to talk about Verdi, this is a lecture's getting a little bit long, so I'm going to talk about that in the second part.